Welcome back. NFTs can be considered property according to Singapore High Court ruling last week. The judge issued this ruling as an explanation for the injunction he granted in May, preventing any potential sale of a Bored Ape NFT. And joining us now to discuss is Reeve Collins, co-founder of Tether and Smartmedia Technologies, as well as BLOCKv, a NFT creation platform. Welcome, Reeve.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
So you have some insights into this ruling by Singapore. NFTs are property. Maybe you can discuss some of the significance when you read this ruling.
Well, it's just nice to see a real court actually acknowledge that, because we've known for a long time that NFTs are property. That's the whole purpose of creating them, having digital property. For the first time, you can actually own your own digital things. And to have the court actually recognize it is just a big step in the right direction.
Yep. And, you know, at the same token, over stateside in the U.S., they're actually considering whether or not they're securities. Any thoughts on that?
That's a much bigger deal. So if NFTs are property or not, that's a pretty obvious thing, that you can own digital stuff and actually buy, sell, trade it, and get value out of your digital things outside the walled garden of the past. So digital property used to exist within walled gardens, and now, thanks to the blockchain, they exist outside of that. Thanks to these new laws, it's recognized as your actual property. But the real undecided thing is, are NFTs securities? We don't know yet, and the security laws are obviously different in every country, and the U.S. is trying to weigh in on that. They're investigating Bored Ape right now, if they sold securities or not, and some NFTs will definitely be securities, while others won't. So it's up to the creators of the NFTs to be able to navigate that, and right now it's a gray area, so the NFT creators need to do their best to ensure that they're as above board as they can be, even though there's real uncertainty in what those regulations are, and knowing that regulations are coming. We can't stop them. Today on the show, there's been a lot of debate around if regulations is good or bad. And it's not about it being good or bad. It's that we have to accept that it will happen in some way, shape, or form. And ultimately, people need to plan for that and just do the best they can to know that when it does happen, that they'll be operating on the right side of those regulations.
Yeah, Reeve, when Ethereum had the merge, there was some discussion, of course, about splitting Ethereum into proof of work versus proof of stake blockchain, and we ultimately saw that. But the question was, what happens to all those NFTs that were created initially? Do they get replicated? Then what are the rights involved in that? How do you think a state will ultimately deal with the idea of replication of an NFT, and who owns those? That has to be agreed on beforehand, correct? I mean, do you think that we'll see kind of some interesting property disputes happen as NFTs are replicated through hard forks and through just engineering?
Well, you bring up a good point, the complex nature of the technology that we're dealing with today. It's like, well, if there's a fork and there's an NFT that exists on two chains, what takes place? But ideally, the more expensive and valuable NFTs that we're interacting with won't be on those types of forks and those two chains. And if someone, for instance, has their Bored Apes and then someone forks Ethereum and there's two Bored Apes, that's not going to happen. So we'll have to see on a per use case basis, but I don't believe that in the future you're going to have that much replication of NFTs, because that's the pure purpose behind them, is that they're singular and that you have the one on one blockchain and you know the ownership and the provenance and where it moves from one wallet to another, and you have perfect traceability. So I don't foresee that being too big of an issue in the future.
I wonder, because with BLOCKv, you start off with an ICO raising about $22 million, and now you're dealing with NFTs and the potential for securities. Are there any discussions with you and the SEC and regulators to try to figure this all out?
Well, the evolution of kind of my career was starting with Tether and the stablecoin and realizing how highly regulated that is, the movement of money, the most coveted thing of everyone's, for the most part. And then that was highly regulated. And so then coming up with the concept, okay, what about tokenizing assets that wouldn't be so regulated, such as collectibles, and then eventually tickets and loyalty programs and every other type of real-world good that could be digitized and tokenized. And ideally, it would take a lot longer for the regulations to catch up, so you could have more innovation and more advancement without the hurdle of regulations. And so when we created BLOCKv, we actually never thought that the first use case would be gambling. Just the buying and selling of these images just to flip a profit.
The speculation.
Yes, the speculation. But it proves to be kind of a reoccurring theme that speculation is going to drive the masses, and that's okay. because it drove adoption, but now it paved the way for NFT 2.0, for NFTs with real utility, be it ticketing and loyalty and deeds to your house and deeds to your car and all these government documents that can be now put on a blockchain and attach your identity. So it's paving the way for the road ahead, and regulations will come, and we will see that these digital objects will become a bigger and bigger part of our everyday lives.
Do you think that having it, as you mentioned, speculation was a big driving factor, particularly with gambling. Do you think, though, that maybe paves the way for it to be viewed entirely as securities? In other words, even the representation of an NFT as a representation of a real property, such as a house or jewelry or the like, the fact that it can be bought and sold so quickly, those property rights can be bought and sold, and that it's something that represents that ownership, then becomes a security in the eyes of the law. Do you think that this actually paves the way for things that otherwise wouldn't have been viewed as securities, such as home ownership, such as things like that, which we kind of think of as real property with all sorts of benefits? Do you think that maybe creates a kind of a scary world where the regulators might get too out of control?
Well, you bring up a great point, and we have to hope that the regulators don't get too out of control, that they let the industry grow in the most natural way possible. And the good thing is it takes so long for regulations to be enacted that a lot of growth does happen. And so the regulations are going to first stop the blatant misuse, which in my opinion is the flipping of JPEGs for speculation, because that is gambling. It's just gamification and a new way to gamble, which is great. It brings awareness and adoption. A lot of people have a lot of fun. A lot of people lose a lot of money.
It's really fascinating to me that you predate CryptoKitties, kind of one of the first killer applications of NFTs. What were you doing back then?
Yeah, so we came up with the idea of this smart NFT. How do you create a highly programmable token? So CryptoKitties came out and put an image on the blockchain, but we wanted to enable you to make that highly programmable, make it dynamic, make it ownable, make it change state. And so we built a ton of technology to deliver just that. And we've been building it ever since for the past 7 years. And so now with Smartmedia Technologies, which is another company built on top of the BLOCKv protocol, which is an enterprise-grade Web3 platform, it provides the infrastructure for wallets, NFTs, and metaverse environments for large global brands. Because we also feel the first use cases for Web3 and NFTs will be large brands and how they connect on a one-to-one basis with their consumers. Because Web3 really revolves around the wallet. The wallet will be the killer app. Everyone will have an email address with a wallet attached, because now you can have economies on the web, like new types of tokens and NFTs. And so these brands will have their consumers, and their consumers will have a wallet. And now the brands can provide real value directly to the consumer through NFTs and through cryptocurrencies. And that will be the start of Web3. Many more use cases and applications will come, but really I think that'll be the low-hanging fruit that a lot of people will start seeing and feeling and getting value out of in 2023.
So, Reeve, you brought up your involvement in Tether years ago, and of course, it's been quite some time since you're with the company. But looking back and kind of seeing how it's evolved, recently they announced that they're no longer holding commercial paper on the asset side of its balance sheet. Do you think? What's your take on how it's been doing its cash management? Do you think that its history since you left and up until recently, with investing in these sort of commercial paper endeavors, which aren't, which are still kind of opaque as to what they were exactly buying? They said the grades were high grade. Do you think that it should have been more in cash and less in more speculative instruments, or do you think that they were doing the right thing?
So my belief is that, first of all, Tether is probably the most highly scrutinized financial institution there is, and they're also held to the highest bar. There's no other financial institution in the world that's required to have 100% reserves. It is what we put out there when we started the company that's always going to be one-to-one backed, because we felt that would be important. However, right now, you were saying that they had some commercial paper and it wasn't all 100% backed. then it's not necessary to be 100% backed. There will be no way that there's 100% run on the bank. So I believe that they did what they could with their best intentions, and they never skirted the issue of, will we be solvent? Will we be able to fully redeem at any point in time? When Terra Luna collapsed, there was a moment when I believe
98 cents, so it went down to 90.
No, but I'll touch on that. But like $13 billion was redeemed, and they redeemed it right away within that week. It wasn't an issue. And when you talk about the price of Tether going up or down, the price of Tether never fluctuates from $1. It fluctuates on third-party exchanges.
Yeah, okay.
So there might be a lot of demand on that one exchange.
People are willing to take less.
Right. But if you are to redeem your money directly from the Tether Corporation, it's always at $1. It's just easier to redeem on third-party exchanges.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. It's not easy to redeem one for one. If they do make it kind of difficult on purpose, one thinks, because it sort of stops it from going crazy.
All right, we'll end it there. Reeve, thank you so much for joining us. Reeve Collins, Smartmedia Technologies co-founder, as well as co-founder of Tether.
Thank you very much.